The chain rattled against the moonlit shed door, taut as a violin string. I pressed my face against the splintered wood, my heartbeat filling my ears. Through the gaps in the paint, I saw only darkness thick, impenetrable, except for a milky rectangle of light wavering inside. The baby's cries pulsed from within. Thin, unnatural, almost pleading. I told myself it couldn't be real. It couldn't. But mixed with the wailing was something else, my husband's voice, soft and cooing, syllables I couldn't quite make out. The hairs on my neck lifted. Across the yard, his shadow broke from the porch, dragging behind him a sack of formula and something I couldn't identify in the darkness. If I stayed here, would I finally see the truth, or would I never be allowed back inside my own house? You know how people say your home is your sanctuary? That's a lie. The truth is, your home is only as safe as the minds that inhabit it. For years, I clung to the idea that I could build a life with someone simply because we'd been each other's home since childhood. I thought I understood Will, but I think I was just incurably, dangerously naive. Will and I married at 19. He took his father's route, working jobs where the wires ran deeper and more tangled than our marriage vows. I studied for exams stacked higher than my mind felt capable of scaling. From the outside, our house was just another faded American suburb, fences and cable wires stretching into a cloudless sky, neighbors who never looked too close. But houses can keep secrets, and so can people. The first thing that truly rattled me happened on a Thursday. The sky was boiling with that plain blue heat that makes you feel trapped in your own skin. I found Will hunched over his phone in the kitchen, the screen reflecting in his glasses. He looked up abruptly. "Hey babe," he said, a nervous smile tugging at his lips. His work boots were still laced up. "Didn't expect you home," I said, trying to keep things casual. My body tensed. We'd fought 2 nights ago about the same bruised subject. When or if we'd have a kid. He dropped his gaze and reached for his lunchbox. "I'm just grabbing something. Gotta go work in the shed," he mumbled, heading out back. I'd never noticed how often he'd started giving that excuse, how often the shed door closed with a click behind him. Something in the way he said it, in the way he didn't meet my eye, prickled under my skin. That night, I woke up at 2:43 a.m. The bed was cold beside me, Will was gone. Through the window I saw a stripe of yellow leaking from the shed. A shape moved inside fast, erratic. I pressed my ear against the glass. That's when I heard it. Not Will's voice, but a sound softer, stranger. It was a faint whimper. The kind you hear from behind hospital curtains on the worst nights. The whisper of a baby's cry, impossible, lost, and somehow wrong. My mouth went dry. There was no baby. There couldn't be. But the longer I listened, the louder the crying became. Something was in the shed, and my husband was acting like he'd always known. Was I losing my mind? Or was he hiding something monstrous in our backyard? Each night, the cries grew louder and more desperate. And as the danger crept closer, I realized. Some doors are locked for a reason. But what if what's inside wants out? I tried to reason with myself the next morning. Sleep deprivation does things. Makes pipes moan like infants, makes your own heart sound like footsteps on the stairs. Logical explanations. It lingered in my mind as I brewed coffee, pouring too much creamer and spilling it across the countertop. Will moved quietly through the house, grabbing a sack of groceries and a few tools. I watched him load them into the shed and lock the door with a thick rusted chain. "Need any help?" I asked, my voice playing at normalcy. He smiled, almost with pity. "Nah, I've got it. You stay inside. Study or something. Big test coming up, right?" His tone was the same as when he'd tell a child to let the grown-ups talk. It rankled. As days passed, our routines fractured. He worked late, came home with mud on his boots and a vacant look in his eyes. He'd avoid my gaze, his hands rough and always fidgeting with the small, silver key that now hung from his neck on a black leather cord. But it was the things I started noticing that gnawed at me most. Baby formula cans buried at the bottom of the trash. A pair of pink, frilled socks caught in the lint trap after a load of my laundry, too small for anyone I knew. Sometimes when I walked past the shed, I'd swear I saw the shadows move, something too small, too hunched, darting along the wall. The cries didn't fade. They evolved. Sometimes it was a mule like a kitten left out in the rain. Sometimes worse, it sounded like a human infant, only distorted. echoing with a warble that made my ears ache. One night I tried confronting him. "Are you hiding something out there?" I asked, staring at his profile as he absently tapped his fork against his plate at dinner. He froze. "Don't be ridiculous," he said, not looking up. "You're tired. You're studying too much." "That doesn't explain the crying, Will. Or the formula. Or the socks." His fork clattered. "You're imagining things." He said it with a finality that was frightening in its certainty. Later, when I went to pour myself a glass of wine, I noticed something else: my birth control pills in the trash, the pack half full, crushed beneath a steak wrapper. It felt like someone had plunged an icy finger down my spine. The next morning, Will's keys were gone. The shed stood silent, but inside, something scratched at the window and swear to God whispered my name. Across the thin stretch of darkened yard, something unseen was calling, not just crying. And Will's smile grew stranger every day, colder, like he knew a secret I didn't. If the shed held the answers, what would happen to me the moment I finally opened that door? I tried to choose the rational path: keep my head down, focus on school, wait for Will to get bored with this obsession. But our life had become a standoff, both of us circling an invisible line in the dirt. The space between us felt electrified with things unsaid. My thoughts grew noisier than the house's creaks. Was Will having a breakdown? Had he taken someone's baby? Was there a lost animal dying in there? Or worse, was I actually losing my mind, hearing things that weren't there? I grew obsessed with watching him. I hid behind the curtains as he made his way to the shed. I timed his visits, counted footsteps. Each time he'd bring in new items: towels, jars of something thick and viscous. Occasionally he'd hum softly as he disappeared inside, like someone serenading a dearly loved child. The sound sent chills through me. The argument started again, more venomous than ever. "You really think I'd do something sick?" he yelled once, hands shaking, eyes rimmed in shadow. "What's wrong with you?" But it was the softness that terrified me most when, late at night, he'd nestle beside me in bed and whisper, "Don't worry, Dove. Our daughter's taken care of. She's just fussy tonight. We don't have a daughter." The next afternoon, I snuck into the backyard when Will was at work. The sun was blinding, the grass itching my ankles as I crept to the side of the shed. The chain was still secure. Through a small gap I peered in. It was dark, cluttered, but I saw something in the center. A bassinet, rocking gently, though nothing touched it. On the inside of the shed walls, scribbles in red crayon or something worse looped over and over. "Roxy, Roxy, Roxy." As a cloud passed the sun, the shadows shifted and the bassinet rocked harder, as if some unseen hand was jostling it. A breathless, high-pitched giggle burst out from inside. My knees went weak. I ran to the house, heart pounding so loud I thought I'd faint. That night, the crying didn't stop at the shed. It echoed inside the walls of our house, worming its way beneath my sheets, until I couldn't tell if it was real or not. When sunrise finally came, there was a new message slashed into the paint on the shed's door. "I'm hungry." "She's not enough." The thing behind the door wanted more. I could feel its hunger in my bones, gnawing, insistent, inhuman. And Will. He wasn't just hiding it. He was feeding it. As the barrier between us and that thing began to collapse, I realized this wasn't only about us anymore. It was about survival. The days bled together, feverish and strange. Will acted more frantic, his hands always trembling, his eyes red and wild. At dinner, he avoided discussing anything but mundane facts, as if reality itself might unravel if he spoke of anything else. I tried calling my mother, my friends, anyone who'd listen, but the words felt toxic when I said them out loud. "My husband thinks we have a daughter. He's keeping something in our shed." They pitied me. They advised patience and rest. How do you explain the splintering of your own mind or your marriage when the proof is somewhere no one wants to look? One night, unable to sleep, I stole the key from Will's jeans while he showered. My heart hammered as I felt its cold metal in my palm, heard the water stop, the floorboards groan beneath his step. I sprinted across the backyard, moon washing the grass in an unforgiving white glare, and jammed the key into the shed's padlock. My hand shook so badly I nearly dropped it. Inside the shed, the air was cold and thick with the scent of old milk and something coppery. My eyes adjusted. There was the bassinet, impossibly still now. The walls, every inch, covered in frantic messages. "We love Roxy. Feed us. She's coming. Childlike handprints too small, and too many scattered over every surface. Then from the shadows a shape lurched forward, Will, wild-eyed. You shouldn't be here. His voice rasped, barely human. From the bassinet, the sound of crying twisted into words. Mommy. I staggered, bile rising in my throat. Inside lay a thing, pink and soft but wrong, its eyes too wide, its limbs too long. Its mouth opened impossibly wide, and it cried again. Hungry. Will grabbed my arm, his grip vice-tight. We have to feed her. If we don't, she'll find her own way in. I tore free, stumbling out into the night as the shed filled with sounds, screaming, singing, something clawing at the walls. And as I ran, Will's voice followed, pleading. It's not our choice anymore. She chose us. The shed's chains were never meant to keep us out, they were meant to keep something far worse in. Now, with Will lost to the thing that calls itself our daughter, I had only one chance left to destroy the secret before it escaped. But if I failed, it would come for me next. For all of us. Sleep was impossible. Even with the shed door barred behind me, the cries seeped through the walls, the piping, the marrow of the house. They followed me, grew behind my eyelids when I tried to sleep. I tried to tell myself there was an answer, a rational explanation. Hallucination. Shared psychosis. A psychological break to explain the impossible events. But every time I whispered that to myself, something in the house would shift. A shadow growing longer, a cradle's creak overhead, milk souring in the fridge overnight. Will went missing. For 2 days I watched the shed from inside the kitchen. The front porch light flickered red after midnight, and the house grew heavy with tension. I was alone now, except for the thing in the shed, whose cries had become more articulate, more targeted. Mommy? Hungry. Come. The night of the storm I tried to run. I threw open the shed, baseball bat in hand, knowing I couldn't let it escape into the world. Inside, the air pulsed cold, thick, full of moths. The bassinet had tipped over, empty except for those endless pink socks. The words on the wall had changed. Open the door. That's when I saw her, small, hunched, eyes wet as polished stones. Her mouth opened wider than a child's ever could. Black liquid drooled over her chin. She lunged for me, her voice a chorus of infant screams. I swung the bat. The world flickered red, the storm screaming outside. I woke in the yard, grass pressed into my cheek, the shed a smoking ruin. Will was gone. The crib was gone. But in the wreckage, a single sock fluttered in the breeze. And from somewhere deep beneath the floorboards of our home, a new baby's cry echoed low, insistent, and somehow impossibly familiar. Now every night that hungry voice calls. It's learning my name. Sometimes when the thing you love most wants a family, you have no idea what you're inviting in.